The briefing room aboard the Korthak battle cruiser Vengeance Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Admiral Zekmore's tentacles twitched as he studied the tactical display, his compound eyes reflecting the red glow of defeat markers scattered across the galactic map. 27 worlds. 27 supposedly inferior human colonies that had somehow managed to humiliate the mighty Korthak Empire. Explain to me again. Zekmore's voice dripped with sarcasm as he turned to face his tactical officer. How a species that discovered fire barely 10,000 years ago managed to turn our glorious Third Fleet into space debris. Commander Vakresh shuffled his clawed feet, clearly uncomfortable. Sir, the humans appear to have unconventional tactics. They don't follow any known military doctrine. Unconventional? Zekmore's laugh was bitter, echoing through the chamber like nails on metal. Commander, unconventional is using gravity wells as weapons. Unconventional is breeding war beasts in zero-G environments. What the humans do, that's just insane. The tactical display flickered, showing recordings from the Battle of Kepler Station. Vakresh winced as the footage played, watching human fighters ram their tiny ships directly into Korthak dreadnoughts, their pilots screaming something about "for the Emperor." Even though humans didn't have an emperor, they sing during combat. Admiral, reported intelligence officer Kixnell, her voice trembling. We have intercepted their communications. They actually make music while dying. What kind of species does that? Zekmore's tentacles coiled tighter. The Korthak Empire had conquered 47 different species across 6 galaxies. They'd faced everything from crystalline energy beings to sentient gas clouds. But humans? Humans were something else entirely. Show me the Proxima Prime incident again, he commanded. The display shifted, revealing perhaps the most baffling human victory of the war. 3 human ships, outnumbered 50-1, had somehow convinced an entire Korthak armada to retreat. The secret? They'd started broadcasting something called death metal music at frequencies that interfered with Korthak neural networks, while simultaneously performing what their commander called 6 stunts that made no tactical sense whatsoever. The lead human pilot, Kixnell read from her report, transmitted the message, "Hey, alien jerks, watch this," before launching himself backwards through our formation while playing something called an air guitar. Our pilots were so confused they forgot to shoot. Forgot to shoot, Zekmore repeated slowly. Our genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented super soldiers forgot to shoot because a human was playing an imaginary musical instrument in space. Technically, sir, the music was real, just the guitar that was imaginary. Zekmore's eye stalks swiveled to fix Kixnell with a withering glare. Thank you for that clarification, Commander. I feel so much better in knowing our forces were defeated by real, imaginary music. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Outside the reinforced transparent aluminum windows, stars wheeled slowly past as the Vengeance Prime held position at the edge of human space. Somewhere out there, on a planet called Earth, lived the beings that had turned the Korthak Empire's inevitable conquest into the galaxy's most embarrassing military campaign. Sir, Vakresh ventured carefully. Perhaps we should consider negotiation? The humans have sent several diplomatic messages. Oh yes, I have read their diplomatic messages. Zekmore's voice could have frozen helium. They want to discuss something called basketball rules and whether our ships can participate in their Space Olympics. They are treating an interstellar war like some kind of sporting event. Communications Officer Tikzar suddenly straightened at his console, his gill slits flaring with alarm. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet at coordinates 77 Mark IV. Put it through, Zekmore commanded, steeling himself for whatever fresh insanity the humans would deliver. The main display crackled to life, revealing the interior of what appeared to be a human command bridge. But instead of the sterile, efficient workspace any civilized species would maintain, the humans had somehow managed to make their war room look like a combination recreational facility and combat center. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling. Someone was eating what looked like a sandwich in the background, and the commanding officer was sitting in what appeared to be a chair designed for comfort rather than intimidation. "Greetings, Korthak friends." The human commander waved cheerfully. She had short brown hair and wore a uniform that somehow managed to look both professional and completely casual. "I'm Captain Jessica Kane of the Terran Defense Force. Love what you have done with your ship, by the way. Very spiky." Zekmor's tentacles writhed with suppressed rage. "Captain Kane, I am Admiral Zekmor of the Korthak Imperial Navy. You will surrender immediately or face complete annihilation." "Annihilation?" Kane laughed, actually laughed, as if the concept was amusing rather than terrifying. "Admiral, buddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We are not surrendering. We are here to make you an offer you literally cannot refuse. The Korthak Empire does not negotiate with inferior species." "Inferior?" Kane's eyebrows rose. "Admiral, with all due respect, you guys have been trying to conquer us for 3 years, and we have turned every single battle into what my grandmother would call a hot mess. I'm starting to think somebody needs to recalibrate their definition of inferior." Vakresh leaned towards Zekmor's ear canal. "Sir, she has a point. Our casualty reports. I know what our casualty reports say." Zekmor snapped. Then, more quietly, he addressed the human captain. "What is this offer you speak of?" Kane's grin widened. "Simple. We challenge your best warriors to single combat. Your champions against ours. Winner takes all. Loser goes home, and we all pretend this never happened." The bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Single combat? That was actually civilized. Almost Korthak-like in its honorable simplicity. But surely the humans understood they would be crushed? Korthak warriors were bred for combat, enhanced with technology, trained from birth in the arts of war. You would send your finest warriors against ours in honorable single combat. Zekmor asked, suspicious of the trap he was certain lay hidden in the proposal. "Oh, absolutely." Kane nodded enthusiastically. "Fair warning, though, our champion is a bit unique, even by human standards." "We accept," Zekmor declared before his officers could protest. Finally, a chance to end this humiliating campaign with traditional Korthak honor. "When and where?" "How about right now? We have a nice little asteroid field about 10 clicks to your starboard. Perfect arena, plenty of room to maneuver, and if things get messy, the cleanup is minimal." Zekmor's pride swelled. The humans were finally showing proper respect for Korthak military tradition. "Very well. Prepare your champion. I will send our greatest warrior, Battle Prime Kexthul. He has never been defeated in single combat." "Awesome." Kane clapped her hands together. "Fair warning, though, our guy goes by the call sign Tank. Well, you will see." Kane out. The transmission ended, leaving the Korthak bridge in stunned silence. Finally, Commander Vakresh spoke up. "Sir, this seems too easy. Humans don't do anything the conventional way." "Conventional or not," Zekmor replied, his confidence returning, "they have agreed to honorable single combat. Kexthul is undefeated. 8 feet tall, cybernetically enhanced, with reflexes that can track projectiles at near light speed. What could these humans possibly send against such perfection?" 30 minutes later, as both fleets took position around the designated asteroid field, Zekmor got his answer. The human ship Lucky Break opened its cargo bay, and something emerged that defied every assumption the Korthak had made about their enemies. It wasn't a warrior in powered armor, or a cybernetic super soldier, or even a genetically enhanced combat specialist. It was a man. Just a man. Average height, maybe slightly overweight, wearing what appeared to be a standard human combat suit with absolutely no visible modifications or enhancements. He moved with the casual confidence of someone heading to work on a Tuesday morning, not someone about to face the most feared warrior in the Korthak Empire. "That's their champion." Kixnell whispered in disbelief. Zekmor studied the human through the tactical display's magnification. The being called Tank was unremarkable, completely, utterly, absurdly normal. He was even carrying what appeared to be a toolkit rather than weapons. "Perhaps it's some form of psychological warfare," Vakresh suggested hopefully. "Make us underestimate them?" The communication system crackled to life again, this time carrying Tank's voice. He had a slight accent that the translation software couldn't quite identify, and his tone was conversational, almost friendly. "Hey there, big guy." Tank's voice carried across the void as he maneuvered his small fighter toward the arena asteroid. "I'm Tank Morrison from Detroit, Michigan. Looking forward to meeting you. Hope you brought snacks, because this might take a while." Battle Prime Kexthul launched from the Korthak ship in his personal combat pod, a marvel of engineering that bristled with weapons and defensive systems. 8 feet of pure Korthak warrior perfection, enhanced with the finest military cybernetics, trained in 17 different combat disciplines, and armed with enough firepower to level a city block. As the two combatants approached the designated arena, Zekmor found himself almost feeling sorry for the human. "Almost. This will be over in seconds," he murmured to his bridge crew. "Kexthul will end this quickly and honorably." But as the minutes ticked by and the two fighters closed the distance, something strange happened. Tank Morrison, instead of preparing weapons or powering up defensive systems, started talking. "Beautiful day for a fight, isn't it?" Tank's voice carried over the comm system. "Well, I guess it's always a beautiful day in space. No weather, no traffic, just you, me, and the infinite void. Very peaceful." Kexthul's response was the traditional Korthak war cry, a bone-chilling roar that had struck fear into the hearts of countless enemies across the galaxy. "Oh, wow," Tank replied conversationally. "That's impressive. You guys practice that, or does it just come naturally? I've been working on my intimidating roar, but my wife says it sounds more like I'm constipated. Here, let me try." What emerged from Tank's comm system was perhaps the most non-threatening sound in the history of galactic warfare. It was less a roar and more of a questioning growl, like a confused dog who wasn't sure if he should be excited or worried. Even the Korthak bridge crew fell silent, uncertain how to process what they'd just heard. "Yeah, needs work," Tank acknowledged cheerfully. "Anyway, I should probably mention, before we get started, I'm what humans call an engineer. Specifically, I fix things. Been fixing things my whole life. Cars, houses, relationships, you name it. And looking at your combat pod there, buddy, I gotta say, somebody's been doing some really interesting work." Kexthul finally responded, his enhanced voice carrying the authority of countless victories. "Prepare to die, human vermin." Tank sounded genuinely surprised. "Oh no, I think there's been a misunderstanding. See, we are not here to kill each other. We are here to solve a problem. And the problem, as I see it, is that you folks have been trying to conquer us, and we have been making that real difficult for you. Classic engineering problem, really." The two craft were now close enough that their respective weapon systems should have engaged. Standard combat protocol dictated that Kexthul should have already launched his first attack by now. But something about the human's casual confidence was unsettling. "The solution," Tank continued, as if discussing the weather, "is pretty obvious when you think about it. We stop trying to conquer us, we stop making your lives miserable, and everybody goes home happy. But I'm guessing your boss over there won't accept that solution, which means we need to get creative." Kexthul's combat systems finally engaged, launching a barrage of plasma bolts that should have vaporized Tank's ship. Instead, something impossible happened. Tank's fighter didn't dodge, didn't deploy shields, didn't return fire. It simply wasn't there anymore. "Looking for me?" Tank's voice came from directly behind Kexthul's pod. The Korthak warrior spun around, weapons tracking, but Tank was already gone again. "Over here now," Tank called out from a completely different vector. Zekmor leaned forward in his command chair, his compound eyes straining to follow the engagement. How was the human moving like that? His ship showed no signs of advanced propulsion, no energy signatures that would indicate cloaking technology. "It's impossible," Vakresh whispered. "He's using some kind of technology we don't recognize." But Tank's next words sent a chill through every Korthak on the bridge. "Technology?" Tank's laugh was warm and genuine. "Oh, buddy, this isn't technology. This is just good old-fashioned human stubbornness combined with 30 years of fixing things that shouldn't be fixable. See, the thing about being an engineer is you learn to see problems differently. And your combat pod? It's got some real interesting problems. As if to demonstrate, Kexthal's primary weapon system suddenly shut down. Then his targeting system. Then his maneuvering thrusters. What? Kexthal's voice carried a note of panic that no Korthak warrior should ever express. Nothing personal, Tank assured him. I just reversed the polarity on your power coupling matrix and introduced a small feedback loop in your targeting computer. Standard troubleshooting procedure, really. Though I gotta say, whoever designed your systems has a real creative approach to engineering. Lots of redundancies, very impressed. Zekmor's tentacles went rigid. He's sabotaging Kexthal's ship during combat. How is that possible? Sir, Kixnell's voice was barely a whisper. I'm reading energy signatures from the human ship that shouldn't exist. It's like he's broadcasting some kind of localized electromagnetic field that's interfacing directly with our technology. I prefer to think of it as making friends. Tank's voice cut through their conversation. He'd apparently been monitoring their communications. See, Admiral Zekmor, your technology and ours, we are not that different. Both based on electromagnetic principles, both using similar power distribution systems. It's just that humans have this quirky habit of making things work even when they shouldn't. Kexthal's pod was now completely disabled, drifting helplessly in the asteroid field. The greatest warrior in the Korthak Empire, defeated without a single shot being fired in his direction. Now, Tank continued conversationally, we could call this a victory for humanity and all that, but honestly, that feels a bit unsporting. Tell you what, Kex, mind if I call you Kex? I'm going to fix your ship, get you back up and running, and we can try this again. Fair. This is insane, Zekmor growled. He defeats our champion and then offers to help him. But Tank was already at work. Somehow, impossibly, Kexthal's systems began coming back online. Not just repaired, but improved. The power readings were actually higher than before the engagement. There we go, Tank announced proudly. Fixed that power leak you had in Junction 7, upgraded your targeting system's processing speed by about 15%, and threw in a better coffee maker. Because honestly, Kex, your life support rations smell terrible. Kexthal's voice, when it finally came, carried a note of bewilderment that reflected everyone listening. You helped me? Well, sure. Tank replied as if it was obvious. What's the point of fighting somebody if they are not at their best? Besides, I told you I fixed things. And your ship needed fixing. The engagement that followed was unlike anything in recorded military history. Kexthal, now with fully functional and improved systems, launched attack after attack at Tank Morrison. And each time, Tank would either casually avoid the assault or somehow turn it into an opportunity to make another improvement to the Korthak warrior's equipment. After 20 minutes of this surreal combat, Kexthal's ship was running at peak efficiency, armed with weapons that were more powerful than when he'd started, and equipped with systems that the Korthak military engineers would have called impossible. And Tank Morrison hadn't fired a single shot. Okay, Tank finally announced. I think that's enough for round one. Kex, you are a hell of a pilot, and whoever trained you knew their business. But here's the thing, buddy. This whole fight, it's not really about fighting. What do you mean? Kexthal's voice had lost all trace of hostility, replaced by genuine confusion that Tank's ship moved closer, no longer making evasive maneuvers. I mean, why are we fighting in the first place? Your Admiral over there wants to conquer Earth, right? Make us part of your empire. The Korthak Empire brings order to chaos, Kexthal replied, but his tone suggested he was reciting doctrine rather than expressing conviction. Order to chaos, huh? Tell me something, Kex. In your honest opinion, do we humans seem chaotic to you? There was a long pause before Kexthal answered. You are unusual. Tank's laugh filled the comm system. Unusual? I like that. Yeah, we are unusual, all right. But here's what I'm thinking. Maybe unusual isn't the same thing as chaotic. Maybe unusual is just different. Zekmor watched the exchange with growing horror. His greatest warrior was having a philosophical discussion with the enemy in the middle of single combat. This was beyond irregular, beyond unconventional. This was actually kind of nice, he realized with shock. The thought struck him like a physical blow. When was the last time he'd had a conversation that wasn't about conquest or military strategy or the expansion of the empire? When was the last time anyone had talked to him the way Tank Morrison was talking to Kexthul? Like an equal, like a friend. Admiral Vakresh interrupted his thoughts. What are your orders? Zekmore stared at the tactical display, where Tank Morrison was now giving Kexthul a guided tour of his ship's modifications, explaining each improvement with the enthusiasm of someone sharing a favorite hobby. I'm not sure, Zekmore admitted, and the words felt strange in his mouth. A Korthak admiral was always sure, always decisive, always ready with orders. But as he watched the human and the Korthak warrior work together to optimize weapon systems and discuss the finer points of engine efficiency, Zekmore found himself facing a problem he'd never encountered before. What do you do when the enemy refuses to be an enemy? The silence on the bridge of the Vengeance Prime stretched longer than the lifespan of a neutron star. Admiral Zekmore watched the screens as Tank Morrison continued his impromptu engineering consultation with Battle Prime Kexthul, the two of them now discussing the optimal angle for plasma discharge as if they were old friends working on a weekend project. Sir, Commander Vakresh's voice carried the weight of 1,000 unasked questions. Should we intervene? Zekmore's tentacles coiled and uncoiled in a rhythm that betrayed his inner turmoil. Standard Korthak military doctrine had approximately 47 different protocols for dealing with combat situations. None of them covered what to do when your champion started taking engineering advice from the enemy. Admiral, Communications Officer Tikzar announced with barely concealed panic, "We are receiving multiple transmissions from the human fleet. They are offering technical assistance." Technical assistance. Zekmore's voice cracked like thin ice under pressure. Yes, sir. Apparently, they have noticed some inefficiencies in our shield generators and would like to help optimize our power distribution networks. One of their engineers, someone called Bobby Martinez, says our engine configuration is giving him what he calls anxiety attacks, and he'd be happy to show us some improvements. Zekmore felt something he'd never experienced in 3 decades of military service. Complete and utter bewilderment. The humans were winning a war by helping. It violated every principle of conflict he'd ever learned. Put me through to Morrison, he commanded. Tank's cheerful face appeared on the main display. Grease smudged on his cheek, and what looked like a sandwich in his hand. Behind him, Kexthul's image shared the split screen. The mighty Korthak warrior looking more relaxed than Zekmore had seen him since. Ever. Admiral. Tank waved enthusiastically. Great timing. Kex here was just showing me the specifications on your fleet's main reactors. Impressive stuff, but I think we can bump your efficiency up by maybe 20% with just a few minor adjustments. Morrison, Zekmore began, his voice tight with controlled frustration. You are supposed to be fighting Battle Prime Kexthul in single combat to determine the fate of this war. Oh, we are totally fighting, Tank assured him, taking a bite of his sandwich. It's just that we are fighting inefficiency instead of each other. Much more productive that way. Plus, Kex makes excellent coffee now that I've fixed his life support systems. Kexthul nodded enthusiastically. The human Morrison has shown me 17 different ways to improve combat effectiveness through proper maintenance protocols. This is far more valuable than traditional combat. Zekmore's compound eyes began to twitch. Kexthul, you are the greatest warrior in the Korthak Empire. Your purpose is to defeat enemies, not befriend them. With respect, Admiral, Kexthul replied, and his tone carried a certainty that Zekmore had never heard before. I believe my purpose is to serve the Empire. And after speaking with Morrison, I think defeating the humans might not be in the Empire's best interests. What? The word exploded from Zekmore's throat like a plasma bolt. Tank held up a hand peacefully. Now hold on there, Admiral. Before you blow any gaskets, hear us out. Kex and I have been talking, and we have come up with what I think is a pretty elegant solution to this whole mess. The human Morrison, Kexthul added with something that sounded suspiciously like enthusiasm, has proposed what he calls a win-win scenario. Instead of conquest, he suggests cooperation. Cooperation. Zekmore's tentacles writhed in agitation. The Korthak Empire does not cooperate. We conquer. We dominate. We bring order to the chaos of lesser species. Yeah, about that. Tank scratched his head thoughtfully. See, that's where we might have a fundamental disagreement. Because from where I'm sitting, you folks aren't bringing order to chaos. You're bringing chaos to order. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of environmental systems. Finally, Intelligence Officer Kicksnell spoke up in a small voice. What? What do you mean by that? Tank's expression grew serious for the first time since the conversation began. Well, ma'am, it's like this. Every world you have conquered, every species you have brought into the Empire, what happened to them? They became productive members of Korthak's society. Vakresh answered automatically. Did they? Tank's question hung in the air like a challenge. Or did they become cheap labor for Korthak industrial projects? Did they keep their cultures, their art, their music? Or did they all become little copies of Korthak's citizens? The uncomfortable silence that followed spoke volumes. Because here's the thing, Tank continued, his voice gentle but firm. Humans have a saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the Korthak Empire, with all due respect, seems to have decided that military conquest is the only tool they need. But some problems can't be solved with hammers. What would you suggest? Zekmore asked, and he was surprised to realize he genuinely wanted to know the answer that Tank's grin returned. Easy. Trade. Cultural exchange. Shared technology development. All that boring diplomatic stuff that doesn't involve anybody getting shot at. The Empire gains nothing from such arrangements. Zekmore protested. Really? Tank pulled up a holographic display that showed technical specifications. Because according to Kex here, your fleet's been having some serious maintenance issues. Ships breaking down, weapons systems failing, life support going offline at inconvenient times. Sound familiar? Zekmore's tentacles stiffened. Those were classified military secrets. Now, Tank continued cheerfully, humans happen to be really good at fixing things that are broken. It's kind of our specialty. We have got engineers who could have your fleet running better than the day it rolled off the assembly line. In exchange, maybe you could teach us some of those fancy shield technologies you have developed. You would share military technology with us. Kiksnel asked, incredulos. Why not? We are all stuck in this same universe together. Might as well make the best of it. Plus, honestly, your military tech is pretty impressive. We can learn a lot from each other. Kextol's voice cut through the discussion. Admiral, if I may, the human Morrison has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our current understanding. His ability to interface with our systems, his problem-solving methodologies, his approach to conflict resolution. These are not the skills of an inferior species. They are the skills of a different species. Tank corrected gently. Not better, not worse, just different. And different can be pretty useful if you know how to work with it. Zekmore found himself facing the most difficult decision of his career. Everything he'd been taught, everything he believed about the Korthak Empire's destiny, was being challenged by a human engineer eating a sandwich in space. What guarantee do we have, he asked slowly, that humanity will honor such agreements? Tank's laugh was warm and genuine. Same guarantee you'd give us, I suppose. None. But here's the thing, Admiral. Trust isn't something you can guarantee. It's something you build one interaction at a time. And honestly, after 3 years of warfare, I'd say we have both proven we are pretty reliable when it comes to keeping our word about fighting. Maybe we can be just as reliable when it comes to keeping our word about cooperation. Commander Vakresh leaned close to Zekmore's auditory canal. Sir, our casualty reports from the past 3 years, I know, Zekmore whispered back. The numbers were staggering. Not just ships and personnel lost, but resources consumed, time wasted, opportunities missed. The war with humanity had cost the Empire more than any previous campaign, with nothing to show for it but a growing list of defeats. Admiral, Tank's voice drew his attention back to the display. I'm going to make you an offer. No strings attached, no conditions, no tricks. We have got a maintenance crew aboard the Lucky Break that includes some of the best engineers in human space. Let us send them over to take a look at your ships. If we can improve your operational efficiency by at least 15% within 48 hours, We will pack up and head home. No charity, no obligations. And if you can, Zekmore asked suspiciously, then maybe we sit down and talk about what a friendship between our peoples might look like instead of what a war looks like. Zekmore stared at the human engineer, trying to detect some hint of deception or hidden agenda. But Tank Morrison's expression was open, honest, and completely without guile. It was, the Admiral realized, the face of someone who genuinely wanted to solve problems rather than create them. Hexthul, Zekmore called to his champion, what is your assessment of this human's character? The Battle Prime's response was immediate and confident. Admiral, in 30 years of combat, I have faced enemies who were cunning, ruthless, desperate, and brave. Morrison is none of these things. He is something I have never encountered before. He is helpful, not as a strategy or tactic, but as a fundamental aspect of his nature. I believe he means exactly what he says. Tank nodded approvingly. Thanks, Kex. You're not bad yourself, once you stop trying to kill people. The casual exchange between warrior and engineer crystallized something in Zekmore's mind. When was the last time he'd heard genuine friendship in a Korthak voice? When was the last time any of his officers had spoken with such unguarded warmth? Very well, Zekmore announced, and the words felt like jumping off a cliff. We will accept your offer, Morrison, but understand this. If this is some elaborate deception, if you betray our trust in any way, the full might of the Korthak Empire will be brought to bear against your people. Tank's grin could have powered a small star. Admiral, if we betray your trust, I will help you aim the weapons myself. Deal. The next 48 hours transformed everything Zekmore thought he knew about warfare, diplomacy, and the nature of civilization itself. Human engineers swarmed through Korthak ships like beneficial parasites, fixing problems that had been accepted as inevitable for years. They didn't just repair systems, they improved them, often in ways that Korthak engineers had never considered. But more than that, they talked. Human technicians worked alongside Korthak crews, exchanging stories, sharing jokes, comparing techniques. Language barriers dissolved under the universal tongue of technical competence and mutual respect. Lieutenant Kicksforth found himself discussing quantum mechanics with a human physicist named Dave Chun, who had somehow managed to make the most complex theoretical concepts sound like casual conversation. Engineer Prime Kolnek spent 6 hours learning about something called percussive maintenance from a human mechanic who insisted that sometimes the best way to fix something was to hit it with exactly the right amount of force in precisely the correct location. Most shocking of all, the humans kept their word. Fleet efficiency didn't just improve by 15%, it improved by 37%. Ships that had been scheduled for major overhauls were running like new. Weapon systems that had been plagued by targeting errors were now accurate to decimal places that exceeded manufacturer specifications. How? Zekmore asked Tank during one of their daily progress meetings. How do you accomplish such results? Tank scratched his head thoughtfully. Honestly, I think it's because we approach problems differently. Korthak engineering seems to focus on making things work according to design specifications. Human engineering focuses on making things work, period. Sometimes that means ignoring the original design and coming up with something completely new. But surely your methods must be scientifically validated, tested extensively. Tank's laugh filled the conference room. Admiral, some of our best innovations came from people who didn't know enough to realize what they were trying to do was impossible. We call it ignorance-based engineering, and it's surprisingly effective. By the end of the 48-hour trial period, something unprecedented had occurred. The Korthak fleet was operating at peak efficiency. Morale among the crews was higher than it had been in years, and Admiral Zekmore found himself looking forward to conversations with a human engineer from Detroit, Michigan. Morrison, he said during their final meeting, I believe it is time to discuss terms. Terms. Tank raised an eyebrow. What kind of terms? Terms of alliance, Zekmore replied, and the words felt right in a way that surprised him. The Korthak Empire formally withdraws all claims to human territory and offers a treaty of mutual cooperation and technological exchange. Tank's expression grew serious. That's a big decision, Admiral. You sure your people back home are going to be okay with that? Zekmore's tentacles coiled in what humans might have recognized as a shrug. Morrison, in 3 years of warfare, the Empire has lost more ships, personnel, and resources than in any campaign in our history. In 48 hours of cooperation, we have gained more technological advancement than in the previous decade. I believe even the High Command can do that math. Plus, added Kexthul from his position at the conference table, the humans have agreed to share their combat enhancement techniques. Specifically, something called trash talking that apparently can demoralize enemies through carefully crafted insults. Tang grinned. Oh, buddy, wait until you learn about psychological warfare through interpretive dance. We have got techniques that will blow your mind. And so, it was that the Great War between the Korthak Empire and humanity ended not with the thunder of weapons or the cries of the defeated, but with the sound of laughter echoing through the corridors of ships that had once been dedicated to mutual destruction. Years later, when historians of both species tried to understand how Tank Morrison, an engineer from Detroit, had single-handedly transformed an interstellar war into an interstellar friendship, they would focus on his technical skills, his diplomatic insights, or his revolutionary approach to conflict resolution. But Admiral Zekmore, who had become Ambassador Zekmore and spent his retirement years teaching joint Korthak human engineering courses, knew the real secret. Tank Morrison had won the war by refusing to fight it. He had defeated the Korthak Empire by making them better than they were. And he had saved both civilizations by recognizing a simple truth that had somehow escaped the notice of generals, politicians, and military strategists across the galaxy. Sometimes the best way to win is to make sure everybody wins. The universe, as it turned out, was big enough for all of them.